And happy podcasting to the world out there. This is Sam, and with me as always is Zeb and Ross. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Fantastic.
We made it. We're almost to the end of the preseason.
Is it really almost done?
Yeah, I mean,
the dragging.
Not
I didn't
only
even get
that,
to watch the
but-
last game, so
I mean, not only that, but like, you know, from 2018 it was a 0-win preseason. Now we're 2-1. It's like a totally different preseason, totally different world.
championship.
I think that's really the only way we can look at it. Regardless of what happens tomorrow, this is a Super Bowl winning team.
Bingo.
Bango.
Regardless.
Doesn't matter what happens from now on, Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah,
Doesn't
and
matter
we've
how
seen
many-
Paxton
doesn't matter how
Lynch's
many-
greatest game in the NFL.
We
Is
did.
he out of concussion protocol?
I think he's practicing, so I think he's out of it, but that was a pretty brutal hit that he took.
That was rough.
Yeah, but the announcer was like pretty nonchalant about it. Well, he just kind of dinged him a bit there. No, dude, that dude was the most brutal shot I've seen in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it was a mix of him sliding feet first, which means like you cannot touch him at all, and the guy's still going, low.
Head first into his head.
He wasn't even looking up. I mean, he probably doesn't get kicked out of the game if he's at least looking up while leading with his face mask. But no, he totally lowered his head.
Yeah, it wasn't close.
Yeah, so I mean, what are you going to do about it other than the fact that he got ejected? He's probably going to get a huge fine. He's going to lose
His fine was like $10,000, $10,600 or something.
Yeah, but he's a rookie, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's like an entire day's pay that he's losing out on.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I
think
wouldn't
it
want
should
to.
be. I think it should always be a percentage.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely merit to that. But yeah. But we got one more preseason game left. It's actually tomorrow. It's the lovely home game against the soon-to-be Las Vegas Raiders, but currently they're just the regular old Oakland Raiders still.
They're still in Oakland for now, yeah? Okay, that's good.
For now, I
mean,
mean...
aren't they going to have to be there next year as well because they don't have any... They're just totally disorganized. I don't think their stadium's ready. They don't have anywhere else to be next year.
I think it's next year it's supposed to be. This is the year that was in limbo.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, it's a total cluster. It's very Oakland Raiders for them to be as poorly run as they are, so it's kind of not a surprise. But there's definitely a lot of pub going about them. But I think, we're going to talk about it in the podcast today. The preseason's kind of like this weird beast. I mean, the preseason is coming to a close, so the chance for so many of that, I think it's like 89-man roster right now. Some of their time is coming to an end. Seahawks final game tomorrow, but is it really going to matter? Because the starters are playing less and less in the preseason, not just for Seattle but across the league. But we're all here. All the starters are going for the full 4 quarters. This is the Seahawks Hawkscast podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. Gentlemen, Zeb, I think it was you that said you didn't even watch that last preseason game.
No, I was on the road. I had to take a road trip. I had to go out trapping.
Ross, did you get a chance to watch that game?
I watched 3 quarters of it.
Okay. Of the 3 quarters that you watched, were there any highlights that stick out to you?
I mean, no. To be honest, not really. I mean, I thought, I don't know, like, I was impressed by it wasn't physically impressive to watch or impressive to see, but the play calling on offense, I think, is pretty interesting, where they keep running, like, the read option with Russell keeping. I mean, I'd already mentioned it during training camp, and then, like, every game they keep calling more than they have in the last couple of years. Like, Russell keeps keeping it.
Yeah, I think that point is definitely something worth keeping an eye on, because Russell is by far one of the smartest runners in the NFL. You never see him take a unnecessary hit. You see him always lead the ball out as he's running out of bounds to get that extra yard and a half. There's so many things that he does that is, to his credit, but kind of to the other side is like, you always worried when he's out in the open, just, maybe he doesn't see somebody or takes a slide too late, or what happened with Paxton Lynch, you have an overeager defender, making a reckless tackle, and, that could really do something to him. The thing that really stuck out to me, and this is a surprise knowing if you guys have been listening to the podcast, is CJ Prosise played an actual real-life game and actually looked pretty solid. Initially I thought it was someone else, but until I saw the 22. But CJ Prosise scored a touchdown. Rashad Penny had a really nice run game. Chris Carson.
They both seem to run pretty hard.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like the run game, again, we're talking about a preseason game where the Chargers literally did not start, think 17 of their 22 starters. So, they took advantage and they look good. And if that's what the Seahawks are going to try to do all season long, I'm not against it, especially when you add in that play action with Russ and Lockett, and it just looks like it's still on point, those two guys.
It's funny because Prosise, there's all the conspiracy theories out there. Like, you listen to Pete after the game, and maybe those carries kept him on the team. Whereas I think a lot of us kind of assumed he was going to have to show a lot more to show he belonged. But then you're also, you do watch those runs, and you're like, can you cut that guy if he can actually?
Yeah, I think that's the question. If you see a guy play that well in the series and the opportunities that he gets, it's really hard to look at and say, oh, that guy needs to be cut. There's so much that I think fans will never see when it comes to the personnel decisions. There's always going to be like, oh, why did they cut that guy? Why did they keep that guy? There's a little bit of politicking that I'm sure we'll never quite understand.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that with CJ, in his limited actual action, he's looked fantastic. It's just so rare for him to be out on the field in any kind of consistent manner that, even if he does show out in the preseason, we just, we can't trust him. So he's got to be. I mean, he's stuck around, and it seems like he probably still will, just because that's been the way it's gone. But it's hard to have that faith that you can count on him. Especially going into November, December.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, because we lost Mike Davis to free agency, he signs with the Chicago Bears. Seahawks, I think, really enjoy having three running backs. Last year it was Carson, Penny, and Davis. This year it's Carson and Penny. Is Prosise that third running back? Because they have a bunch of other guys on the team. J.D. McKissick is still hanging around. He's one of those jack-of-all-trade running backs that does a little bit of everything. But I think, CJ Prosise has kind of that prototypical good size for kind of that combo running back that can line up in the backfield, line up at wide, take advantage of an undersized corner or burn past, a linebacker. So that is always going to be enticing when it comes to CJ Prosise, but can the guy stay healthy?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of decisions they make with that running back group.
But that actually...
Isn't McKissick interesting because now, they played around with punt returns last week, and it wasn't very awesome.
No, not at all.
McKissick can do that.
No,
McKissick can do that, and I don't know. I feel like Prosise is getting carries. I think that's something to the idea that Prosise is getting carries because for 10 days he's probably going to be healthy. So why is healthy? Get him, showcase him, and get somebody to buy him, because once he's sold off, he's probably going to fall apart again.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that actually.
But the opposite, the other side is how much were they traumatized by the Alex Collins thing, where we nurtured him and taught him and were patient with him, and then we finally lost patience with him, got rid of him, and the next season he ran for 1,000 yards.
I think
so. There could be a little bit of that as well, right?
I think those are circumstances outside of their control. They knew they had a garbage line, and they knew that he would not work well with our offensive line. So, and I don't even know if he's on the team right now because he got cut by the Ravens too.
Right, but that had nothing to do with his football ability. He wouldn't decided to be Mr. Knucklehead, right?
Right.
So.
But that actually leads us to the first topic that we're going to go with. So, Ross, I'm going to lead you off with this one because you actually read a really great topic about the 53-man roster. Go to Hawkscast forum, check it out. Topic number 1, Ross. What position will be the toughest when it comes to roster cuts?
Wide receiver. It's going to be a little easier than it seems like to us because, as we've seen, so much is decided in actual practice, not the games. Because the games, like, they just get so few opportunities. And, like, I don't know, like, preseason's too short, but at the same time, like, I would want, like, almost like watching a whole game of only watching Jazz and some of the other players, Jennings. Because when you get 4 quarters and maybe 30 pass attempts, some of them to running backs, and then some are thrown off because of the defense. There's just so little to guess on, so little to evaluate on. So it's got to be mostly about practice. But it's funny because I thought, like, going into training camp, I thought, like, this is a really hot, amazing, good group. And on the opposite side, or to the contrary, I feel like very few people have really distinguished themselves. It's like I don't feel like I'm like choosing. It's hard to cut because there's just so much awesomeness. I just feel like everybody I have positive feelings about. There's so much potential there, but I don't have a really good feel. I don't think the Seahawks exactly know who you want to keep at this point. And plus, it's what we do every year. Fans especially forget that once you get down to like the 5th and 6th wide receiver position, you're probably not choosing purely based on wide receiver ability. It's more like what else can you do for us? What's your special teams contribution is really going to decide it, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to be outraged because that, this guy's a better receiver. But when you're the number 5 receiver, you're talking about 10 catches a year. So it's not about that. I think wide receiver is a hard group.
Zeb, do you have any position group that you think is going to be a controversial roster manipulation when we finish this game tomorrow?
Yeah, well, my initial response to that is wide receiver as well, but just in now talking about the running backs, we got some, I don't know, there's going to be some interesting choices made there, depending on who stays healthy and who doesn't. And, Carson and Penny are pretty obviously the locks, but then we got Scarborough and Turner, who's looked good in his limited time. Homer, who we drafted, and you'd like to see if maybe he could be something, probably going to be a practice squad guy, I imagine. Bo Scarborough, I think, is kind of he's got that big body. I think people would like to see him get some opportunities. And then McKissick, obviously, like you said, he's kind of the Swiss Army knife. He can do a little bit of everything. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't imagine they'll have a real hard time figuring out who they want to hold on to. But I think for a lot of the fans, it's going to be interesting to see. You know how people get upset when the guy who flashed in the preseason gets let go. It's happened a fean times recently.
Oh,
so
sure.
I think it'll be interesting to see. It's like with these guys, I'd love to keep them all around. Obviously that's not possible.
I mean, as fans, you get attached to everybody, and
right. And then, you got guys like Homer who, you want to see what he can do, but there's just not that much time, to have him go against, starting quality players and see if he can handle it. So, I think that, running back for me, is the one I'm most interested in.
I think the one that's going to be really interesting is going to be the secondary. And this is cornerbacks, safeties, and, tweeners, the guys that kind of run between everything. We saw Deshaun Shedd come back to the team, and he scored 8 points. He's got a pick 6. He scored a safety. He's played really well. He's played at safety. He's played at corner. That's the guy that, was formerly on the Seahawks, a little bit on the older side, but he's made an impact in preseason, which is great. But then it goes back to the conversation. Is that what the Seahawks are looking for? Like, great, you flashed, in these preseason games against maybe second and third string teams, but do they warrant that as a valuable roster spot? You look at someone like Lano Hill, not Delano Hill, Lano Hill now. That's apparently how he's
just Lano.
Yeah, he's kind of getting lost in the shuffle. Tedrick Thompson, he's getting the starting opportunity, it looks like, with Bradley McDougall at the other safety position. But Marquise Blair, he's been looking great, but maybe people are still questioning if he's got the right frame, right size for what they want him to do, because he's maybe got the frame of a free safety, but it looks like he's much more adept playing kind of that in the box strong safety, like kind of like a Cam Chancellor. So he's battling some injury. He's back to practice. That's going to be an interesting competition. Does that mean that they would rather keep someone like Deshaun Shedd and let Delano Hill go because he just hasn't flashed anything? Then you have all these corners that they have on the team outside of Trey Simmons or Trey Flowers and Shaquille Griffin. And I don't know who's going to get that nickel spot. I'm not really sure who's like really put their neck out there and said they're going to be the guy that takes over. I don't know if that's Deshaun Shedd. I don't think he's got that lateral quickness to him. So maybe we see like a trade or a late season acquisition in the preseason. But that's a position group that I think is going to be really, really tumultuous. There's going to be a lot of change, and I think as a Seahawks fan, maybe you should read what Ross wrote. I'm not really sure what they're going to do there because I don't think anyone's like clearly solidified themselves for a roster spot.
I think Jamar Taylor now looks like he's going to get the nickel spot. Akeem King can play that, but he also backs up the left corner, so he can play outside, inside. What's interesting is outside of the two outside corner positions, it looks more and more to me like they're just sort of looking like for football players. The slot, the nickel corner, the slot cornerback position, and the strong safety and the free safety, which in the heyday were very, very distinct, right? Like Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas could not be more physically or mentally different. But now, once we don't have superstars at the safety position, they're playing more cover 2, which means like it doesn't really matter what you are. They're also playing cover 6, and they're also disguising things. They're doing cover 3, but blending coverages. So it looks, I mean, like Blair. He's a great example. His mentality and the skill set is more like a strong safety, but you're not going to take McDougal off the field, and you're not going to put him at his weaker position, which is also free safety. So it looks like they're going to shoehorn him into free safety.
Yeah.
Tedrick Thompson is like a very safe play because he can play it. But, I mean, we saw last year. He got the opportunity, and I was really excited for him last year at the beginning of the season. But he just plays that position so conservatively. He doesn't really have the mentality to go and like make a turnover or make the big hit. He's just focused on not getting beat every play.
Yeah.
And not getting run past on a run play. So he plays it so deep, and I've never seen him start a play where he didn't like take 3 more steps back. So I don't know. It's funny. I think how they make the cuts in the secondary will tell us a lot about their mentality going into the year and how they feel about the players, not just like how good they are, but what the scheme is they think they have to play, how much the players are going to decide the scheme.
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about real quick, Ross, you alluded to this in your post, and it's about what's going on with Shaquem Griffin. So in the offseason, the Seahawks said that they were going to try and give Shaquem more opportunities as a pass rusher because that was his natural position at UCF last year his last year at college. And when he was drafted, he came out, Defensive Player of the Year in his conference for being a very, very effective pass rusher and also being a great story. But I don't think I've really seen Shaquem at all this offseason. And in preseason, I really haven't noticed him. Ross, you predicted that he's going to get put on the IR. Do you want to kind of extrapolate a little bit more about what's going on with your thoughts on Shaquem?
I've had to change it now because he's going to be a victim of healing too fast because apparently he's playing tomorrow. And if he's playing tomorrow, it's going to be hard. Well, I mean, it's the modern NFL. They could probably still fake it and say he's still hurt. I think they want to keep him around. This is going to sound so bad, but almost as a PR move, and also like his brother's on the team and whatever. I think there's a lot of reasons to keep him around in some capacity, but like you said, like early in the offseason, the OTAs, they were talking about he's going to be a pass. Like you said, like early, and they've kind of quietly dropped that. That didn't work out, it seems like. There's no evidence that worked out. There's no evidence that they're still working on that. It doesn't seem to be evidence that they've got a great bunch of linebackers. And so it's a numbers game. And like I thought perhaps if he was still hurt, they would stash him on IR and keep him on. Maybe another year of development will help him next year. That happens. I'm not sure that happens on a linebacker, but it happens.
Yeah.
But again, if he's healthy enough that he's playing tomorrow, maybe we're all wrong. Maybe he hasn't done the pass rushing thing. They've been quiet about it because they don't want to put too much on him, and he's just been hurt to show it. And maybe tomorrow he does it and he flashes and he's got 3 sacks and 5 downs, and he's, oh my God, he can do that. And we don't need Clowney either. So maybe we're gonna see a lot tomorrow. I don't know. It looks to me though like he's kind of on his way out the door, and if they just talk to him and say, hey, look, you know what? You're a courageous man and you've set a great example. Maybe football's not going to work out. Maybe it's too much to overcome. But we'd like you around. There's a lot you can do, like, community outreach and things like that. And it was a great start. He did make the team.
Yeah.
And he started a game last year. So I don't know. There's a lot. I don't know. I don't think you want to straight out cut him and just have him go somewhere. But I don't know. It's a hard. See, of us three, I'm the one always like, football's a business, and I don't think he makes the team purely as a linebacker at this point. Does anybody?
I haven't seen enough from him in the games that they've played preseason wise. And because I didn't get to go to a training camp this year, I didn't really get an opportunity to see like what's he look like in camp. But also it's been really quiet about him. The stuff that I've seen him on, especially with Seahawks social media, has been more of like PR stuff for the Seahawks, talking about programs, talking about, partnering with other foundations and groups, and like just really solid community outreach. But I haven't seen a lot of football stuff,
I mean, and it's partly like, if they weren't so stacked at linebacker, maybe there still is a space as a reserve linebacker. And he really still is good at special teams. He had that play in the first preseason game, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, everybody has shown up at linebacker, but, it's the modern NFL. We don't need 7 or 8 linebackers. We're going to keep 5 or 6.
Yeah, and the thing you have to also think about is they're moving guys from linebacker to the defensive line because they're saying, like, you know what? These young guys that we're getting, we like the depth they provide, so we want you to be the pass rusher now.
That's a good point. Again, I mean, maybe tomorrow he shows up more than we expected.
Zeb, real quick, you think Shaquem, depending on how Shaquem does tomorrow, is he going to make the team?
I don't see them outright cutting him either. I don't know. Tomorrow's the kind of game where we're going to see a whole lot of the unproven guys, and some of them are going to look great and still get cut. So
you know what I blame it on? I blame they gave him a terrible linebacker number. It's an awful linebacker number. It's
not a good one,
fault.
is it?
That's the fault.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. It's a numbers game.
All right. Well, speaking about the numbers, speaking about preseason, let's move on to topic number 2. Zeb, is it the right plan to sit so many starters in the preseason?
Are we sitting more than usual this year? I haven't really noticed.
Yeah, this is the first year.
Yeah, this is the first year that Russell Wilson did not play a preseason game as a healthy scratch.
The first game he didn't play.
Yeah, the first preseason game he's never played.
Pete Carroll's really gone all in on the modern ideas of everybody sits.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're a veteran and you're established, you're kind of expected to show up ready to play. If you're coming off an injury, maybe it's good to get some time and get some rust off if you've been away for a while. But I think signs are pointing to in the near future probably going to only a 2-game preseason and an 18-game regular season, right? Does that seem like that's what's probably going to happen?
Yeah, I have my own qualms about that, but yeah, it's
totally. I feel like it more and more this preseason. The preseason is just to kind of find out what the younger guys can do, give them some opportunities, get some game experience. It's much less about your Russell Wilsons, your Bobby Wagners, your Dwayne Browns. Those guys don't need to go out there and play a whole bunch in the preseason for risking injury. So yeah, I guess if Pete thinks that this is the right way to go about it, then I'm on board.
Ross, what about you? Do you think this is like the right plan?
I mean, there's so many aspects of it. I mean, all those guys out there with their $10 and $20 million contracts, and if somebody gets hurt, there's that horrible, horrible, horrible feeling. And of course, the NFL's also worried that, I mean, look what happened. Luck retires, and all the fans are angry. Imagine if he'd how much they would have reacted to if he wasn't retired, was going to play, but got knocked out for the season in the preseason, right? I mean, people lose their minds, although it's part of the game. And Zeb's exactly right. If you're Dwayne Brown and Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, there's not much for you to prove out there in the preseason. But here's my question: the other side of it that makes me wonder is if we want to find out if Shaquem Griffin can play, if we want to find out if Jazz Ferguson can really play, well, the only way to know if he can play is to put him in the exact same situation as Tyler Lockett or Jerron Brown. If everything else on the offense is the same, but one guy or two guys is different, then you're trying to evaluate people out there, but the guy throwing the ball is Paxton Lynch or Geno Smith or JT Barrett. That's not what it would be like. And those guys are second and third and fourth stringers or whatever players because they're not as accurate. And if you're, or even a left guard, a backup left guard, and you're trying to find out how good he is. Well, maybe he screwed up the play because the left tackle and the center weren't as good either. It's really, football's such. We talk I've talked about this before. I don't always go in all aboard with the analytics people because I think they take the wrong message from it. And it's not like baseball. It's not a series of one-on-one competitions. And so when you're trying to evaluate these players and you're trying to evaluate them, it's not a vacuum. It's affected by everybody else around them. So I'd like the starters to play more just so that we could see some of the younger people in a combination with them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely it does.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of what you're talking about is how do you know how good someone is if they don't get to play with the people that they would be compared to?
Or against
how good is Jazz Ferguson if he's not getting thrown to by Russell Wilson?
And if he's going up against number 3 and number 4 on the depth chart guys as opposed to starters.
Yeah, and some people just respond to the challenge. And the other aspect of it also is training time, practice time is so cut down now. It used to be 2-a-days and training camp was longer, and now it's 4 weeks and 1 practice a day, and it's 2 hours, and the Seahawks cut off 30 minutes of some of the practices. So you kind of need every minute out there. I don't know.
It's too hot out there. Global warming. That's the problem.
Well, climate-controlled stadiums, man.
Start nuking hurricanes.
Yeah. Hello.
I think
a long time ago.
I think the whole issue that we're seeing is that players are becoming too valuable to risk in something that doesn't mean anything. So whether you're a rookie, whether you're a solidified starter, an aging veteran, there's just so much risk involved in football as a sport in whole, and it's really amplified when it's in a game that really doesn't mean anything. You look at all teams that have ever lost anyone in the preseason in a game that doesn't mean anything, and everyone will tell you, well, that was never worth it. That's
right,
always going to be
hindsight. That's such hindsight.
It's a hindsight thing, but you also understand that ultimately, what is Russell Wilson going to get playing at even at 80% game speed against a team that really doesn't care about the outcome either, right? Russell Wilson's going to put 100% in it because that's his hyper competitiveness. But are we able to really judge how well that new wide receiver is going to play with him because the corner is going to lay off a little bit and the safety is only going to pay at 60% because it's a contract year and he doesn't want to get hurt until the regular season? And it's all of those different elements that I think that make it even harder and harder to say, is it really worth it? And I'm having a hard time, even as someone who watched almost all of the preseason, really getting excited because, one, I knew that all the starters aren't going to play. Tomorrow is the last home preseason game. I'm going to go. I got meeting my friends. We're going to go, have dinner. It's a super late game. It's a 7:00 football game, which I think is super weird. But
I love it.
I can't imagine that I'm going to stay at the game much later than like halftime because none of the starters are going to play. You know, anyone that's worth watching, I'd rather watch it at home because I still got to go to work on Friday. You know, it's a really weird situation to be in. I'm having harder and harder time trying to justify the value of a preseason game because there's just not a lot of merit to it anymore. Yeah, it's great for the players. It's great for them to get tape out there and to show themselves how good they can be. I think someone like John Ursa has done a really good job in his limited sample set, you know, playing with all kinds of quarterbacks. Does that mean that he's going to crack the top 3 wide receiver pool? Probably not. You know, maybe that secures him a roster spot, even as a 7th round draft pick, but maybe he sucks in practice and he still gets cut. Who knows?
It's funny because I feel like so much of this stuff really was already decided in like May. Like I feel like that when I interview people, I have a company. When I interview people, I tend to know. That's something I shouldn't say. I tend to know in the first 10 seconds of an interview whether I'm going to hire somebody or not, right? And I feel like coaches are like in the same way. Like when they've seen the guy practice like the first time, and you could see how fast that guy is or how much he beats another guy off. 90% of the time, I feel like they know already, and you're just like you're really spending the next 4 weeks of training camp trying to battle or improve your first impression, but you only ever make a first impression once. So, you know, I feel like so much was decided. So somebody like I'm really interested in like Gary Jennings. The Seahawks are one of the teams that we always like to say like you know your draft position doesn't matter much. It's what you can really do.
Right.
Well, what has Gary Jennings done?
Yeah, that nice blindside block blew up a dude.
I feel like depending on who you talk to in the sex, I feel like they're either going to seriously ding him for that or they're going to seriously plus him for that.
I think it's a mixture of both because you saw him right after the play. Pete Carroll's talking to him, and Pete Carroll does a really good job. He's never like blowing anyone up on the sideline, but you could tell like, hey, that's a stupid move. You got to know better. But it wasn't like Gary Jennings was hanging his head in shame, thinking, "Oh God, I'm getting ripped by the coach." He was like, "Okay, I need to learn." He's going to learn from that. I definitely felt that wasn't a negative. I think it was, you know, a learning opportunity at best, or at worst. I mean,
I think some people would be like, you know what, he wanted to do something. He's frustrated. He wants to play.
I could buy that.
He wanted to be involved in the play, and I could see that. I don't know. We'll see. I'm really interested to see what they do with him because, like, 4th rounder.
Yeah, and he's buddies with like his dad and Russ's dad are like buddies from back in the day, so they know they know each other. So
really,
yeah.
I don't know. Like I pre-draft, I was like Jennings is gonna have the better career than DK Metcalf.
Yeah, but then you saw DK Metcalf in person. You're like, okay, hold up a second.
Yeah. But still, you know, you want to be the guy who gets to say, "Yeah, I knew it." I didn't know it. I did.
All right.
DK Metcalf in person is so much more, like, I don't know, like his film was awesome, but then you see the dude like live, and he's just so much bigger and faster than everybody else on the field, and you're just like, you can't just throw to that guy over and over again. Just throw to him.
But that's like Cam Chancellor, don't you think? Like that physique is so intimidating when you see it in uniform, you see it on the field. I mean, Cam had the dark visor too, but I mean, we've talked about this. Like, that's like the perfect physical football body. And DK Metcalf, if he could do anything like that, I mean, he's going to fill a lot of heads in that same way, I think.
Yep.
All right. Well,
so make sure you draft him in the 13th round of your fantasy football.
All right, let's move on to topic number 3. So topic number 3 is the Hawkscast Corner. So this topic comes courtesy of the Hawkscast forum. This comes from Birdfinger, so shout out to Birdfinger. So the topic that he wrote about was entering the trade rumor part of the preseason. So as the preseason is going along, and the fact that there's not any cuts until the last game of the preseason, a lot of trades are much more likely to happen now, and the biggest name on the market is Jadeveon Clowney. So, Ross, there's lots of rumors out there. There's rumors about what's going to happen with Malcolm Gordon in the LA Chargers, rumors about what's going to happen with Ezekiel Elliott. Clowney's the biggest biggest name, because that is a need for the Seahawks. What is your take on the trade rumor train that's leaving the Seahawks station right now?
I want Clowney. I want Clowney, but we're not going to get him. It's funny because like last year and the year before, I kind of criticized the last minute trades, but this one makes sense to me. This one totally makes sense to me. You're not going to give up something we can't afford to give. You probably get if he does walk, you get the compensatory pick back most likely. I think this time it's a risk to take because if we can get Clowney, then you're bookending him with Ansah. And then Reed comes back from a suspension, and Ford is in there. That's our front four.
And you got LJ Collier coming in once healthy.
Yeah, and then behind them you get we probably have like the best linebackers in the league right now. So all of a sudden, like where our defense was like this big minus, all of a sudden you're saying we've got probably a top 3 line, and probably the top 1 linebackers. And then we'll just ignore the secondary for a second. But all of a sudden, like the defense goes from like an area of concern to probably a plus to me. And the offense is a plus. And all of a sudden, we're not like, oh, hey, we can get to the playoffs. We're like, you know what? If this gels a little bit, we're looking at this possible, we could be Super Bowl contenders a year or two ahead of schedule. So, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Pro size in a second. There you go. Merry Christmas. Enjoy it.
They do need a running
back. If they need a linebacker as well, I go Kalicho, Pro size in a second, I guess. Fine. You can have it. Kalicho was what? Kalicho was like a 7th rounder or an UDFA or something originally?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was acquired through he's an undrafted free agent from another team.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so give him Kalicho, give him Pro size because they lost Lamar Miller, and then give him one of our seconds from next year because we've got 2. So, and then you know what? But book your tickets, Super Bowl.
Kalitro is what you get when you plant coriander seeds.
What? Kalicho's okay. There you go. So we're making Mexican. No sour cream.
I'm sorry.
No.
It's late and I'm tired. Okay, so that's what I got.
Was that a true fact though? Is that true? Kalicho is what you get when you pound.
No, it's cilantro, but
oh,
I don't know.
In Japanese we use over here in Japan we use 3 different words for the exact same herb depending on what you're making. We use coriander, we also use pakchi, and we use cilantro. It's all the same thing.
Yeah, it's all the same stuff.
But like if you're making Asian food over here, we call it pakchi. If you're making Mexican, we call it we just change the word. It's the exact same thing.
Same thing, different word. Interesting.
Nice.
It just depends on what you're making with. Interesting facts. Moving on.
Zeb, where are you docking or taking off or getting on with the trade rumor train that's going on right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess the only thing that I've really kept up on is the Jadeveon Clowney situation, and of all the people I've talked to about it, some are like Ross, yes, make it happen. Others are like, no, not going to happen. Don't need him. I don't know. He's not as good as everybody thinks he is. I'm kind of where I was with Percy when we brought Percy Harvin in, which is like, if we get him, then I'm going to root for him to be the best he can be. Until that happens, he's not really even on my radar. I don't care. It sounds awesome, but at the same time, like, yeah, the guy was a monster in college, and not that he's not a bust or anything, but he hasn't necessarily lived up to expectations. So, it would be interesting to see. I'm not counting on it. I don't know that it's the game changer that some people think it is, but
9.5 sacks.
What's that?
He had 9.5 sacks last year. He's much healthier than he was at the beginning of his career. What's the downside?
And he can play the run too.
He had 9 sacks last year. He had 9.5 the year before. He had 6 sacks 3 years ago. 4.5 sacks 4 years ago, and then his rookie year he only played a couple of games.
Yeah, early in his career he was hurt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
since he's been healthy, and like 9.5, I mean that's that's not like amazing, but like you said, he can also play the run, and if he's like lined up against like on the line and the other side is Ziggy Ansah, and there's also Puna Ford to take care of, and there's also Jared Reed. I don't know, man. That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's and at the very least, it's another capable body on the line. You know, whether it's superstar status or not.
It's somebody on defense that the offense actually has to think about. I don't think they spend a lot of time thinking about like Jacob Martin. No offense, Jacob.
Yeah. I think
Totally.
the thing that a lot of
defenses
people
worry
are going to
about
run
TT.
into in this situation is they're going to think about what are all the trades that the Seahawks have made to try and solidify the team. You go back in time, we're talking about Sheldon Richardson, you're talking about Percy Harvin, talking about a Marshawn Lynch, you're talking about Dwayne Brown, you're talking about all these guys, and it's been hit and miss, you know. For every Dwayne Brown, there's a Sidney Rice. For every Jimmy Graham, there's a Marshawn Lynch. So
Wait, did you use Sidney Rice as an example that didn't work out? Sidney Rice worked out.
no, not Sidney Rice. I'm thinking about Percy Harvin. Sidney Rice
okay.
also came from Minnesota, but Percy Harvin and Dwayne Brown, Marshawn Lynch, and Sheldon Richardson. So there's all these examples of trades that have been good for the Seahawks and trades that have been bad. And I think what happens is people are not willing to commit to the fact that once a trade happens, you still lose out on something, but it doesn't happen for the future. So people hate having the fact that like, oh, well, we got a guy, but come draft time, we don't have a second round pick, and that freaks people out.
Especially if we're just going to bring him in for a 1-year situation.
Right, but then when he leaves, we'll probably get a third, at worst a fourth.
We'll get something for him.
Right.
I feel like I much prefer the idea of building for the future than just like the rental on the off chance that he has a fantastic season. And I don't know.
I don't want to waste this season. I don't think we can get to the Super Bowl without a serious pass rush. I don't know teams that do.
I think that's the thing you have to think about, and that's what makes this trade so unique and interesting. You look back at all the other trades that the Seahawks made. You could argue that there are a lot of times they made those moves and there was not real great value to it. Trading for Sheldon Richardson, trading for Jimmy Graham, trading for Sidney Rice. Those were not huge areas of need. They were more like, these are nice to have, right? Dwayne Brown.
Like, I was always against
Dwayne Brown was like, we should make this trade because we have nobody at left tackle.
Yeah.
We have no reasonable running back. We should trade for Marshawn Lynch. There's examples where like making a trade made a lot of sense and those players like paid out really well. There's trading for Brent Hundley, and you're like, why do we need to trade for a viable backup? Because we know Russell's going to play every single snap, even if he's got to play on crutches. And I think that's why you kind of look at this. But again, it goes back to the uniqueness of Jadeveon Clowney. It's a pass rushing end linebacker that the Seahawks currently do not have. And if you could add that to this roster without losing any player, maybe other than like a depth player, for a future player who you may not even know who that is, it's really enticing. It's really, really enticing to think about what could someone who can get upwards of a double-digit sack season do for this team that they don't currently have. And I think that's what makes this trade so enticing and so intriguing. And I think I'm kind of like with you, Russ. Like, I'm much more willing to pull a trigger on this type of a move than if it were to say, oh, yeah, Seahawks really want to bring in a wide receiver. I'd be like, no, pass. We're fine. Russ can throw 2 garbage cans for all I care.
Sorry, I was just going to say, just to add to your point, but like last preseason game, it's something you can really learn. Pass rushing, in a sense, is almost like baseball. It's a one-on-one, right? If you're the outside guy, you got to be the outside guy. We didn't win. And like San Diego has a garbage line. They have a terrible... Okung is their number one, and he wasn't playing because he almost died. He had a pulmonary embolism, right?
Yep.
And so then they were playing they were just playing garbage line, and we weren't winning. We weren't winning. If we can't beat the San Diego Chargers' horrible line, how are we going to beat anybody's line? we got to get pressure. We have to. Otherwise, you're just gonna waste. You're the best linebackers ever. You're gonna waste another year of Russell Wilson's career. Tyler Lockett's not gonna be young forever. Like these sports careers can be so short. Like Andrew Luck taught us this week.
Yeah, real quick,
Every
because
year
that
counts.
leads us into topic number 4. It's not like the San Diego Chargers like running up and down the field and the Seahawks couldn't stop them. They did enough. But I to your point, I do agree that it wasn't like 55 points against like their second string when our first string was playing.
Our defensive, you wanted our linemen, you wanted our outside linebackers, and you wanted our defensive ends to like consistently get there to disrupt the pocket.
Right.
Literally every play, there should have been some pressure, and there wasn't.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, those are guys that are all fighting for their football careers too. So it's not like they're just gonna like give up.
I mean, first quarter, first series, I didn't see like Jacob Martin back there. I didn't see anybody back there.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you.
I mean, yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on because Ross, you actually segued us into the very next topic, which is topic number 4. And Zeb, with Luck retiring, will Wilson be the undisputed number 1 QB from the 2012 draft class?
Yeah. I think he was probably going to be anyway, but I think the thing with Andrew Luck is that there'll always be that almost an asterisk. Like, he had all the tools and he was going to be the next great thing, and he really probably could have done it, been what everybody expected him to be. He had kind of a unfortunate situation. He's had some injury issues, but when you watched him play, he just had all the tools. He could do everything, and he played with heart. And it was easy to see why people fell so in love with Andrew Luck. But that said, if you just look at the numbers, look at what's been accomplished, I don't think there's any doubt that Russell Wilson has outplayed every other quarterback drafted in 2012, including Andrew Luck. So yeah, I don't think there's no question about it in my mind. There'll always be that what could have been with Luck. But yeah, it's unfortunate to lose him so early in his career. I wouldn't have minded watching him play for another 7 or 8 years.
Ross, when you heard about this, did you think that it was just like a speculation, a rumor, or did you actually like, oh yeah, it finally happened?
Neither. I didn't. I don't know if I completely believed it at first, but at the modern age, it took me about 30 seconds to get 4 different sources. So yeah, I was stunned and confused at first, but then as I sat in my chair, within a few minutes, it all started to kind of come together. Like even things like the Colts had been saying the past few weeks, like with this context, it makes a lot more sense. I don't know if you watched it, but I was doing my fantasy football research and trying to figure out, because I drafted Luck last year and I thought he's gonna have a good year this year. I thought so. I was thinking, and then a couple of weeks ago, the coaching staff for Indianapolis had said something like, "We got because he'd hurt his ankle or calf or something." And they said, we got to really know the situation by the 3rd week of the preseason. We really got to know what we're doing, who we're going forward with. And I thought it's a really weird way of saying that, because if it's ankle, it takes another week, fine, but you'll know, and just said you have to prepare anyway. But now we understand that even though they denied it, they clearly know he was talking about retiring. And so, it's really sad. And I feel, not in a negative way, but you sort of feel cheated, because now I don't feel like people are going to ever give Russell Wilson, paradoxically, his full due, because they're always going to be sort of linked. Russell Wilson sort of took over RG3's job as being the person linked to Luck, and so now he's going to be the most the profound 2012 draft pick forever. but there's always going to be people who are going to say, yeah, but could play 5 more years. So I feel a little bit cheated out of the chance for like Russell Wilson just to have like the long career right next side by side. But other than that, I mean, like Andrew Luck was a guy. He was a cool guy. I loved watching those little oral takes, like the when they've got him mic'd up, and he's like he gets hit by the linebacker or the defensive end. It's like, yeah, good hit, man.
Yeah,
cool. Those are cool. Seems like a really cool guy. Slightly dorky, but it seems like a lot of quarterbacks are.
Yeah.
I think I kind of agree with both of you guys. I'm not really sure how else non-Seahawk fans are going to take it, other than the fact that what's always happened before is Russell Wilson has always been given the credit of like, oh, well, Russell Wilson gets to play with a great defense. He hasn't played with a great defense, still made it to the playoffs. He plays with a great running game, so he doesn't have to like worry about passing. Hasn't always had a great running game. It's only been, I think, 3 of his 7 years he's had a great running game. So again, it's not always true. The other thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is, Russell Wilson's not the volume passer, but he is way more efficient than Andrew Luck. And I bet if you were to ask the random NFL fan, name me the top 3 targets for Andrew Luck versus the top 3 targets for Russell Wilson, anyone but only Seahawk fans would be able to give you 3 targets from the Seahawks. And I think that's always what's going to happen. Even if Andrew Luck had continued to play, people will continue to find reasons to try and excuse Russell Wilson's performance. It's always been kind of like his lot in life. He's always going to be kind of discredited to a degree and not given full accolades. And I think only until he retires will people be able to really look at what he accomplished. Because he does have a lot of really impressive records. But like you were saying, Zeb, Andrew Luck was the number 1 pick. He was a prototypical quarterback that you would want in size, in arm strength, in stature, in all these elements that people want to just like check boxes off and like, this is the cookie cutter quarterback that everyone wants. He hit all of those boxes. And to see him retire because Indy basically let him get eaten up by a terrible line, it's really disappointing. It's really sad to see that his career is not going to have that longevity that's really going to be able to kind of put him in like that echelon of quarterbacks, because people have always talked about wanting to see a Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck Super Bowl. I mean, we were really close to that one year, which would have been sweet. That would have been one of the all-time hyped events if that happened. But unfortunately, Andrew Luck's team couldn't beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
I saw a redraft today on which app was that? On some app. It showed like a redraft if the 2012 draft class was redrafted now, where would they fall? And it had Russell Wilson now going number 1 overall. Andrew Luck, I think they still had going number 2 to the Washington Redskins, saying, you know what, even if they knew they would only get 68 games, they'd probably take him.
Is that the one that had Bobby 3?
Bobby was 4.
Bobby was 4.
So I thought that was really cool. 2 out of the top 4 picks were Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby Wagner, 99 rated in Madden.
That's right. Yeah, it was pretty. A lot of Seahawks fans had a pretty strong anti-Andrew Luck sentiment for a lot of years, just because of the hype and Russell Wilson being kind of overshadowed based on the hype. But if you really just strip away the biases and look what Luck was able to do when he was healthy and playing, the guy was really a fantastic quarterback. And it's unfortunate that he wasn't able to accomplish more than he did.
I will confess my common Andrew Luck trope is that the only reason why he had great stats is because he would turn the ball over early in the game and he would be required to make a comeback in order to pad his stats at the end of the game.
I mean, that definitely happened a lot for sure.
So that was my trope with Andrew Luck.
It was totally true. I forget. There's one playoff game that's the most famous for his comeback, but I'm like, they had to come back because the guy threw 4 picks. in the first half.
I mean, it's not like Russell doesn't have a similar trend sometimes too.
Right. He did literally the exact same thing. But in that Green Bay, for example, NFC Championship game, like some of Russell Wilson's picks weren't picks. Kearse was having a horrible game. They just would like bounce off Jermaine Kearse's hands,
and then
totally
exactly into the arms of a Green Bay defender.
Yeah. Luck was throwing like legit. I don't know. I always thought that. I still think Luck is a good quarterback. I've just always thought of him as essentially as Matt Stafford plus legs.
Okay, yeah. So I would give him more credit than that, but I can understand where you're coming from.
I also think, Ross, the reason for that is because what they expect of the quarterback with the body, with the arm, is they don't expect them to do anything else. They don't need them to be like a Drew Brees. They don't need them to be like a precision artist like a Tom Brady or someone that's going to chuck it from their like falling out of bounds like Aaron Rodgers. They're like, no, just run the simple system, like hit your pocket, hit your target in stride on that last drop, and like that's the expectation. And I think Luck did that really well, but also think it doesn't make him that interesting of a quarterback overall either, because you can easily compare him to a Matt Stafford-like quarterback, a Matt Ryan kind of guy, because that's what is the quote-unquote prototypical quarterback.
I think in a sense this is going to sound weird, and it's probably a topic for another day, but Peyton Manning was one of the top 3 quarterbacks of all time, I'd say. But in some ways, people trying to learn lessons from that experience, like, it's really hurt the NFL. That's one thing. Like, Andrew Luck is a boring quarterback in a sense because people follow still like that Peyton Manning example.
Yeah,
just get one good quarterback, put him in the pocket, just throw the ball, and you can win that way forever. But there's so many ways of building a team. There's so many things you can do with a quarterback. There's so many ways. Yeah,
and that's to your point, Ross. That's also what makes Russell Wilson so dynamic, because he has the elements of a guy that can throw from the pocket, can elude the pressure, scramble, still find a guy downfield. He can do all these different things. He's not limited to one thing. And I think that's one of the credits to the Seahawks, to Russell Wilson, and one reason we're really, really happy we extended him.
Definitely.
All right. Well, those are our topics, and we got some predictions for everybody. So, Ross, I'm going to hit you up with the predictions first. So, prediction number 1, yes or no, Russ starts?
Yes.
Zeb?
1-0.
Yeah, I'm a yes on that one too.
I'm going to say no. I think they're not even going to bother giving him any game time, because if they weren't going to play him at home in the first game, when we open the preseason, there's no reason why they're going to give him any game time in a meaningless game 4. Ross, yes or no, Bobby starts?
No.
Yes.
I'm going to say no.
I think they both get a series.
I think that it's going to be the Austin Calitro, Ben Burke-Irvin, Cody Barton show. There's no point in letting Bobby play in the last game. This is the one I'm really interested in, Ross. DK Metcalf plays, yes or no?
No. No.
Nope.
Zeb, no? Oh, man. I want to say yes because I want to see that guy play.
I do too, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, okay. Yes or no, Marquise Blair plays?
Me?
Yes.
Or him?
Ross?
Yeah, he's playing. He's going to play a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think he's going to play. Is there a reason why he wouldn't?
He missed the third game, so he missed the game on Saturday. He got injured in game 2 from like a bad fall on the sideline, so he's a guy that I see as like the one person that's really stuck out to me on the defensive side, so I'm hoping that he plays, but if he doesn't, I'm not going to be shocked. All right.
Yeah.
Seahawks or Raiders, who's going to play more starters? Ross?
Wow. Raiders have to, I guess.
Zeb?
I'll go Seahawks just to not have the same answer as Ross.
All right. Well, I'm going to split the tie. I'm going to say the Raiders are going to play because John Gruden seems kind of that old school mentality that like starters still have to start the last game. And the last prediction for the night, Ross. Yes or no, Deshaun Shedd scores for a third time in the preseason?
Yeah, why not? Sure.
I like it, but no, the odds are just against it.
Yeah, he's going to get a drop kick. He's going to stunt all of us, and he's going to score in a third different way. It's going to be glorious.
Never tell me the odds.
Exactly. And, gentlemen, that is our podcast for the evening. Any shout-outs tonight?
Shout out to my Pop Duke's 65th birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday, Papa Dukes. Ross, any shout-outs?
No.
No? All right. I want to shout out to Ross and to Zeb. Gentlemen, we are going to be starting our weekly podcast. Football season starts next week. We're going to be coming very regularly every Wednesday. Times to be confirmed, but we are going to be putting them available online on Spotify. They're on Spotify, on iTunes, SoundCloud, on YouTube, on the Hawkscast forum. So check them out. Follow us on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast. Follow us at Seahawks Forum. Go to hawkscast.com. For the Hawkscast Podcast, I am Sam, there, Zeb, and Ross. And gentlemen, good night. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks!
Hawks.